Now, fair Hippolyta, our nuptial hour draws on apace. 4 happy days bring in another moon. But oh, methinks how slow this old moon wanes. Welcome to Each Retelling, the podcast where we explore all the ways old tales are made new. I am your host, Jasmine Garcia, and today we have a very special episode where we're going to be covering the Worlds Elsewhere Theatre Company's first production, A Midsummer Night's Dream, from all the way back in 2020.
I didn't even know all of you guys.
Yeah.
I would love it if you could all kind of introduce yourselves and the role you played with the production.
I'm Sam Marchiony. I was playing Philostrati and understudying Hermia, which meant I got to see a lot of the magic happen before the stream, and I'm so grateful for that.
My name is Ilana Greenburg-Sud, and I am the artistic director of Worlds Elsewhere Theatre Company, but on that first show, I was the stage manager for the production, so I was there for it all.
Hi guys. This is Emily Clark here, and I played Titania.
Hello everyone, I'm Regina Russell, and I played Helena.
The talent in this podcast right now.
Oh, seriously.
If you haven't
So
watched
exciting.
the stream, please go back. I got to rewatch it recently when Addie was culling it for clips, and it was so good.
It really was. I unfortunately missed that Twitch stream, but I, of course, gave it a rewatch for the sake of discussing it, and it's just like, oh my god, seeing all of these faces from before I even knew them, it's kind of trippy, you know?
Yeah.
So do we want to start with how this show happened and then
That
kind
would
of
be
go with
fabulous.
people's experience from there? Yeah. So the little tiny thing in a Facebook group that began what would eventually become Worlds Elsewhere Theatre Company had been a group of people starting in April of that year who were getting together because we were seeing, COVID and things shutting down, and we didn't think it was going to be over anytime soon. So we decided we wanted to get together a bunch of these out-of-work actors and YouTube people and stuff like that and do a show, mostly for our own entertainment, and then we put it up on YouTube because Kyle Calgren, who's one of the other founders, he's got a fantastic YouTube channel, and the plan was to put it up there originally. And so we were working on it, and then George Floyd was murdered, and everybody just kind of stopped. And we were folks scattered all over. Mostly at that point it was just folks in the US, and we were all having a lot of feelings. And so we got together to just have kind of a vent session sort of thing in Zoom. And then we were like, we've got all of this talent right here. Why don't we do something? Because a lot of us, for various reasons, weren't able to go to protests, medical stuff and things like that. And everybody was broke, so nobody could donate to, the folks that were supporting the protesters. So what we decided to do was we would do a play. And we would ask people to donate money to the Act Blue Combined Community Aid and Bail Bond Fund that they were doing, that was 72 organizations around the U.S. supporting protesters and the communities that are affected by the issues in question of police brutality and Black Lives Matter and all that stuff. And we told people, go donate and then send us your receipt, just the amount in your name, and we'll thank everybody at the end. And we decided on the play that day. We basically said, okay, everybody here knows Midsummer, right? And we can fill it in with other people. And it's like, yeah, everybody knew it. Half of them had done it already at least once. The numbers just got bigger when we opened it up because we needed a few more people. So Kyle put it up on his socials, and we put together an amazing group of people. We rehearsed it in 2 weeks, and then we just streamed it, and it was an absolutely incredible ride. And the whole project raised a little over $5,000 towards the fund, which was awesome. And there's a thank you video that's got a full list of everybody that donated, and the stream, it was done the way a lot of charity streams are, so it's got little cabaret acts in the intermission breaks, and there's also a highlight reel that went up earlier this month as part of Worlds Elsewhere's summer retrospective event that we're doing right now. So all of that stuff is up on our channel, and that's how it started. And I got to watch all of this and organize it as a stage manager, but I really want to hear, like, and I'm sure Jazz, you want to as well, like, talk about what that was like. Midsummer in 2 weeks.
I mean, it was really fun for me because I spent a lot of that time actually quarantined in my room, not because I had COVID, but because I had just moved back from my grad school program in Texas to my family's home in Massachusetts. And at the time, the rules were if you did that kind of travel, you had to stay quarantined in your room for 2 weeks.
Right.
Which I did, and so I'd been following Kyle, and I saw this post, and I'm like, oh my god, I could get to do Shakespeare with Kyle? Like, yes, that was how I got into Kyle's videos, and so it was super fun to do it. I think, in hindsight, I kind of hate that I was Philostrity, because one of my biggest challenges as an actor has always been not breaking during funny scenes, and Philostrity is, like, the one character who is not supposed to be laughing during the Mechanicals play. But it was an amazing lightning in the bottle kind of feeling because we were all just revved up on adrenaline. We were going with what we had. It kind of reminds me of the Princess Bride home movie version that was a fundraiser for World Central Kitchen because it was just everybody coming together. This play we already knew so well. It was an act of love and an act of support for the community, so it clicked.
Yeah. I'll go. I was and am a professional actor who worked in New York City. So when everything shut down, I kind of was in my apartment and I gave myself a long time before I acted again, just because I had been going, just go, audition, project. I had started doing directing at the time, and I realized that I didn't have any time to actually sit down and think about, like, okay, what do I want from my theater career and what do I want it to mean? And when the shutdown happened, I had the chance to think about that, and I said, you know what, I'm not going to leap for just any old thing. I don't need to keep pushing. I don't need to keep, I have to stay busy or else I won't be relevant. I was like, I'm going to reject that notion and choose work that I believe in and projects that excite me. And so when this came around, I followed Kyle for many years. I was one of those OG fans way back, like, when I was in college.
Kyle and I went to college together. That's how we knew each other.
Yeah. So, like, I'm only a few years behind y'all, so I would watch those videos and be like, yeah, you know what, it would be kind of cool. And then, like, the Shakespeare week and the Shakespeare months would come up, and I always wanted to play Helena. That was a dream of mine. I'm rather short, so usually people don't see it that way. But this was the
joys of Zoom.
The joys of Zoom, exactly. Like, this was the opportunity to be like, you know what? No, like, I could bring something really awesome to this part, and I was so glad that everybody agreed, and it was really nice to just collaborate with all sorts of people from all around the world and just get back to loving theater, and it's not just a job and something to grind away at. There's a joy there, and it helped me really rediscover that joy, and I'm insanely grateful.
I'm so glad. That's so exciting to hear.
I take it is my turn. So, I went from kind of producing and performing with all my friends and people in my kind of theater community nonstop to nothing. So I went a little stir crazy during the pandemic because there was just, I went from having a million things to do to having nothing to do. And so we were all venturing into this world of virtual theater and performance, which was very new and certainly scratched an itch for a lot of us once we realized we could do this kind of live theater thing and make it happen on YouTube. I just happened to be living in a house full of my friends and theater people. So we ended up doing like cabarets and just all this crazy stuff because we were going stir crazy and we were all
online cabaret with you.
You definitely did. Yeah. We were all just going crazy. Fun. And so before the pandemic, one of the last trips I had taken was to New York, and I ended up meeting Kyle in person because we had talked online, and it was like, hey, Jeff and I are going to be out here. Let's meet up. So we had kind of become friends, and he started talking about this theater company, and I've been involved in just the creation of so many theater companies over the years. Some of them mine, but some as a company member. And Midsummer seemed like a no-brainer. Shakespeare is always a good bet for a theater company's first show because it's free and you can do a lot with it. I mean, it's a lot of fun. So I auditioned, and I gotta say, I never in a million years I ever thought I would be cast in A Midsummer Night's Dream as Titania. I'm just like really not that type in real life. I'm definitely like more in the like kind of Regina's vein. Like, you know, I would see me as, or like one of the mechanicals even, like just, that's just how I am as a performer. So there was something about Zoom or whatever, this virtual theater, that, you know, I was cast as Titania, and I thought this is going to be a really fun, interesting challenge. I'm definitely comfy playing funny and weird, but, you know, not so comfy playing like sexy, beautiful. So so that was a lot of fun. But then also doing it, you know, with a camera and not actually around everyone was just a great challenge. So the 2 weeks of rehearsal was good. But on the one hand, I got to have my script right there under the camera. So it was like easier in a lot of ways.
10 out of 10.
But then, so it was a lot of fun. And one of the most thrilling things was I never thought I'd be making new friends in a situation where I wasn't interacting with humans. And one of the most like fun, like kind of tie a bow on it things about this is that my bottom, Mike, he lives in town now, and so we've hung out in person quite a lot. So
Like, just play
yeah.
off each other so well.
Yeah. We have a lot of fun. We had a good chemistry, and like he's just great, and so that was really fun. So I don't necessarily want to go back to that time, but it's a time that I hold in my heart as like this bright light when there was just so much shit. So yeah.
That's what we were aiming for.
Yeah.
So Kyle directed, and he played Theseus, and he and David Kowarski, the third founder, and what we really wanted was, while we're at it, let's take advantage of the weirdness of Zoom and the fact that we're a bunch of young, queer, not precisely white, I don't think any of the three of us are straight, technically, thing, and be like, we're not going to come into auditions with any preconceptions at all. We didn't ask for headshots. We still don't, actually. Worlds Elsewhere does not ask for headshots. It does not ask for resumes, and we do not ask for reels. And that is because all of those things are incredibly difficult barriers to entry. And
I remember when we were doing the Roaring Girl, it was so frustrating on backstage, because like backstage
backstage
were like, no!
desperately wants you to send in a reel, because they make money every time. Backstage I could rant about forever, but like there are all of these expenses that come with trying to just get into acting. And we wanted to be like, fuck that shit, basically. And so we announced it on social media. We had people sign up with a digital equivalent of writing their name on something put up on a cork board in the high school. And which was really funny because I had to like double check everything and make sure, nothing got erased by accident. And we just, of the people that we got, everyone got to do something, which was one of the things that was really cool, just because the math worked out, which was really neat, between the MC and the little cabaret acts in between, and then like the various fairies and stuff. Like, we had enough roles for everyone, which was really cool. And we cast based on who we thought would be awesome. And like, Zoom is great because it takes away things like height. It takes away things like a lot with body shape and stuff, because you're only, head, shoulders, maybe upper chest, and that's it. And so that's really limiting. And actors have to learn how to act with like just this tiny piece of their body and their arms if they can keep them in frame. But at the same time, it allows... I don't do much acting for Worlds Elsewhere because that's not where my thing is anymore. But I'm physically disabled. I can't work as a stage manager anymore because I just physically can't do it. But for Worlds Elsewhere, I'm sitting in my chair, which has all of my like special pillows and things to make sure that I'm comfortable. And we've got folks that we've worked with since who have disabilities much more life-changing than mine, who are able to act on a stage without the limitations that being on a physical stage would create. And we went into it going, we're not looking at gender for any of the roles. We're just going to cast whoever we think is cool. So we had a female Lysander, and we kind of played that without changing the pronouns, which, like, I think maybe we might have done differently if we'd had more time to really, like, think about it. And we have definitely done that with all of our shows going forward since then, have all done crazy things with gender, which has been fun. And we definitely we're like, we're doing this as a completely race neutral show. We're not going to worry about racism. We're not going to worry about what race necessarily says about the characters, because again, lack of time. We did cut a little bit of Will's language that was not so great, but I have a book of Shakespearean insults, and I literally pulled insults from other plays to replace them.
Oh yeah.
So that was fun, because there was one insult that somebody was like, I didn't remember that it was in that play, and I'm like, it's technically not, but don't worry about it.
There's one that's like a crow for a dove in,
and we're like, oh
Midsummer.
No, that's out of here.
I remember, I think either I talked about it or it got talked about before we even had the issue, but I remember flagging it and being like, hey gang, I know technically. Yeah. When we did the table read, we specifically asked people, I don't remember, Regina, whether it was you or somebody else, because it's forever ago now, but we specifically said to people, as we're doing this table read, we're asking all of you to multitask here, and if you run into some language that you think is iffy, mark it, we'll come back to it afterwards, we'll figure out what to do with it. And so there's a couplet that we pulled entirely, and a couple of other things, and then there's a word that sounds like it's a colorism slur, but actually just refers to the sun going down, that we were like, okay, gotta look this one up, see what, oh, no, we're fine, okay. But, like, you know, we picked it apart because we're like, Lysander comes across as kind of racist straight in this play, and we were like, we're not doing this, especially considering that we are raising money for causes specifically supporting Black people and the struggles that they go through in this country. Like, we're not playing this game tonight. No, thank you.
Get the garbage bill.
You know, it's fine. It's fine. And the show's so light. We didn't want to have to bring in the weight that automatically brings in, because you have to address it. You can't just leave it there. Are, you know, fun going through and making sure we didn't miss anything. But, like, it was so wonderful to see. Everybody was so passionate, because, like, I think that we have done charity shows since on a more reasonable rehearsal schedule, and when we're doing charity shows, especially, like, all the time, because everybody's always happy to be there, but charity shows especially, there's so much excitement, and, like, you know, we want to make this super awesome so that people donate more kind of energy going on in the background, which was just, you know, as stage manager with no stage, I kind of got to, like, watch and take notes and stuff, and so just getting to see how it was an amazing way to start, and we used that as a springboard for everything that came after, which is just very cool.
Yeah, and it shows. As the person here who was not part of this production, although Sam, you and I actually had a discussion about that, right?
I created, like, false memories where Jazz was there.
Well, that's because she's been here almost since the beginning.
Yeah,
and so it feels like you had to have been there.
Yeah.
I'll take that as a compliment. That's very sweet.
Yeah.
There's...
But absolutely showed, because, you know, I was completely out of the loop until Kyle posted the initial YouTube video advertising that the stream was going to happen. I was just like, wait, what?
Well, that's social media for you.
Indeed. I mean, I've followed Kyle pretty much since, I think, around 2012 or something, and funny thing is, and I'm sure if he's ever a guest, I'll tell him this personally. He's kind of part of the inspiration of this whole podcast. Like, awesome. What you mentioned with the Shakespeare month and everything, like, a lot of what I try to do here definitely comes from that. So I was stoked because Midsummer has always been my favorite Shakespeare comedy. It was actually the first Shakespeare story I properly encountered. I kind of touched upon this in the With a Kiss I Die episode. My 5th grade teacher did a whole intro to Shakespeare unit. Shout out to Mr. Figaro if you're somehow listening to this. One of the things we went over was this gorgeous picture book of A Midsummer Night's Dream.
In that picture book was Hermia in a purple dress and Helena was in, like, a peach dress.
Yes!
I had that same one!
I love it.
That's fantastic.
Connections everywhere.
Yes, oh my god, that's so funny. Yeah, no, and I just fell in love with this little comedy with fairies in ancient Greece, and probably was the first time I'd ever seen like different mythologies being kind of mixed together.
Ah, nice. Yeah,
I feel
yeah.
like that's part of the charm.
We love a mashup.
Yeah, I actually don't know when I first encountered Midsummer, because I don't think I studied it in school, though I only have like 2/3 of a theater degree. But in high school we did, Romeo and Juliet and Hamlet and stuff like that, and Much Ado. But I'm pretty sure I saw a live Midsummer somewhere before I read it, because I was actually reading it for the first time when we did it for this production, which was a little wild, because I'm going through it like beforehand, trying to get some sort of a feel of what's going on, and like I had forgotten about the play within a play entirely. Somehow,
Nice.
so I must have seen it pretty young. So I'm like really confused, and then I get to that part of the play, and I'm like, oh my god. Which,
Arguably
by
the
the
best
way,
part.
I just want to shout out. So the way that our Rude Mechanicals took advantage of Zoom
my
was
God.
amazing.
Oh god.
I was
Because
crying.
it
Little
was-
tears of laughter.
Yeah, no, none of y'all watching at the wedding had to fake any of that laughter. It was
No.
glorious.
I was
The only thing I-
laughter so hard. At one point, I had a drink that almost went out my nose.
The only thing I had to fake was that I wasn't having a good time. Like, that was the only thing I had to fake. I was like, no, I love this. Can we play that Helena's actual motivation is that she loves this? Like, can that be what's going on? Because it was so perfect. And just, like, the ways in which Zoom could allow for those kinds of sight gags, like the kind of sight gags that you would see in film, to have it happen, like, live in theater, but also it's like, okay, you can reach over your screen or to the side of your screen, and all of a sudden, here's a moon and a lantern and my dog.
and wait, no, there's no dog because the collar was empty.
Because
Or
the collar's empty, yeah.
So Grady, who has been in the podcast in the past, played. Oh gosh, what's the character's actual name?
Is it Snug?
Snout. It's Snout. The
Snout.
tinker.
Snug's
He
the
plays
lion.
the wall.
Yes.
And so
Oh
he
my
literally took a piece of cardboard and he drew bricks on it, and then he put a cutout for his face that was the hole in the wall, and so he had his face inside of it, and then he had written wall, but he'd written it backwards. As if he'd
Backwards.
written it looking in a mirror.
In a mirror.
So, and then he made sure that his camera wasn't reflecting, so... Or maybe he had it reflected and was written correctly. I don't remember how he did it, but so the audience saw this piece of cardboard that he's holding with his fingers on the edge, and this wall written backwards on his forehead, and it was
this
just,
tiny little box for his face.
yeah,
Like,
this little because it's the hole in the wall, and it was just fantastic. And the thing that was great is that we kind of told everybody, all right, we have no budget to pay for props or costumes, so we're doing this modern dress, do whatever the hell you want, and we worked a little bit with the mechanicals to figure out how they were going to do the show and everything. So there was some planning there, but like they made all of that up themselves. And so when Daniel comes on with like this lion's mane thing and then roars and then like scares himself, like that was something that happened in rehearsal as a joke, and Kyle was like, no, keep it. But I think my favorite thing that popped up in rehearsal, and then we were like, oh my god, keep it, was actually you, Regina.
Wait.
When
Was
we
it my
were
bonnet?
with the bonnet. So all of the lovers and Titania wake up, and there pops Regina with her, hair
With
in a
my
bonnet,
bonnet on.
because of course Helena would have her shit together enough that she'd have her bonnet with her, which is going to be overnight. And it was just, I literally would have fallen out of my chair if it didn't have arms. And we were like, and Kyle was cracking up, and this was during rehearsal, just like a thing you did, and we were like, no, do that every time, please, it's perfect.
Like, okay.
Shaq lost their mind over it.
That was a lovely little surprise.
And Hillary showing up, Puck showing up with the popcorn
It is still
when
my
stuff
favorite
started
thing.
getting
Too
I have
much.
to ask, Emily, did you and Jane.
Yeah, and then Mike
Did you guys
Fatum
coordinate
was...
it all on outfits? Because we're talking about how, like, there was some coordination. The fairies aesthetic, it worked so well, and you guys had these very different
so
looks,
coherent.
but at the same time, you, like, it worked.
Well, I definitely didn't have the makeup skills that James has. Like, that's for sure. Like, they showed up and they were just, like, ready to go. We talked about costumes. I can't remember specifically, but I know Kyle talked to us, and I just happened, you know, I had gotten married, and I had this really beautiful headpiece at my wedding that was very fairy-like, and so I just was like, oh, I could reuse that, and I'm a drama teacher for middle schoolers, so I have a lot of flowy caftan tops, so, you know, it all, awesome. And it only had to be from, like, my boobs up, so, you know, I was in, like, sweats on the bottom, so it was fun, but I loved how the fairies looked. They all had their own kind of take on their character, and I thought that Hillary James and I were a good little kind of triumvirate.
She all looked great together.
Yeah.
So perfect.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
Just
Even
really
with
awesome.
Hillary's
So when, like,
horns going in and out.
Virtual,
But
The two of them definitely blew me out of the water with that stuff. Like, I can't even come close.
I will tell you, I did never considered, and this is having watched it many times now for various reasons, I never considered yours to not be completely on par with them. And then
Thank you.
basically Kyle had been working on these masks, but we weren't sure if we could finish them and get them out to the fairies in time. And so the minor fairies were kind of modeled after their masks, which you can see the masks are actually in the thumbnail, I believe, for the show.
Yeah,
so
sure.
look out for that. But basically we told the fairies, like, this is the aesthetic we're going for. Do whatever you can with whatever you've got. And so we've got Boo Stocking, one of the fairies, does not put her face online. And so she did this fantastic full face makeup that, like, you could tell she was a person, but, like, it threw all this shadow and everything, and it was just really fantastic. And everybody else, and that show was so wild because that was mostly a US cast, but we had one person in the UK and one person in Poland. We may have had some Canadians, I don't remember off the top of my head. And so getting rehearsal times to work was fun.
Yeah.
Do y'all remember when Harry fell asleep? Do you remember when he fell asleep?
I'm hearing about this.
He fell asleep, you guys. He fell asleep because it was 2 a.m. in London, and we're running a big scene. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, "That man is asleep. He is sleeping." And then we got to his line, and I was like, "Nah, man, no. That is a sleeping man right now." That was so funny.
Yeah.
We shared waking him up as, like, a blooper sort of thing, but this was during one of the rehearsals, and as Emily said, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning where he was, and this is when the lovers all fall asleep, and he was laid back, and we're kind of like, Demetrius,
like,
Demetrius, wake us now. And then we're like, oh god, he's really awake, he's really asleep.
What do
and
we
we're all
do?
sitting here going, what do we do? Because we kind of want to let him
It's
sleep.
not like you're in the
'cause he
room
did.
with him and can tap him or
exactly.
something.
Yeah,
It's like
tap
these
him, right.
computer voices in his dreams, like telling him to wake up.
Oh my god. And then when he woke up, he was so apologetic because we have worked with him after that, and he is such an amazing professional.
He's a
and
pro.
so he
It was just a funny
so
sketch.
apologetic, and it's just like, you are fine, you are totally fine, and everybody like, it was just,
I'm honestly surprised it didn't happen more.
Listen.
but that was the late one. I think that was actually might have been one of the tech run. Which is why it was,
it was
so
definitely
late.
It was.
I think
It
it
was,
was,
like,
during
everybody
tech.
was there, everybody was watching.
Yeah. And it was during a run, I remember. It was like, okay, we're going to run it all the way through, and then we just got to that one moment.
And we
we're
just
out
got
for
stuck.
a while.
Thou art muted.
Thou art muted!
Thou art muted.
Yeah.
Always.
That was Thou Art Muted was the thing that we used for that show a lot because everybody
hath
was still
stolen
getting
thine
used
voice.
to Zoom at that point. But
What a time. It was such a good time.
So let's talk a little bit about what kind of went into this particular production. I know you were just kind of aiming for something light in the midst of all of the bullshit that was going on in 2020. It really was a highlight of the year, I've got to say.
But if you could tell me a little bit about what you brought into each of your characters or into the play itself.
Well, let's see. I think it's really hard to do these scenes where you have to be lusting after someone when they're not in the same room with you. So it was interesting to kind of work the kind of googly-eyed nature of it into just like kind of doing it with my computer. Also, Titania has these, especially her first scene, had a lot of big monologues that I really had to work on a lot. Like Regina, I've done Shakespeare. I went to a college that was very Shakespeare heavy. I'm, a theater child, theater dad. I've seen Midsummer I've directed it like a million bajillion times, but she's got some stuff there that is really hard to kind of parse through. So that was definitely the thing I worked on the most. And then when she's in love with Bottom, that's just cake, that's just having a lot of fun. I will say, I think the biggest challenge was I had to be sleeping for a long time, but I had to be in this very specific position where I was like near the front of the camera. I had to be in a very awkward standing position in order to make this sleeping position work. Yeah, because I had to visibly wake up. That might have been the biggest challenge. That and, Shakespeare fairy flowery language in her first scene. But it was, and again, like I said, I've never really played a part like that. And it's so funny how that's become like with this and Julius Caesar, it's become kind of my thing with Worlds Elsewhere, I guess. so I'm happy to have it. But yeah, it was a fun challenge. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
So for me with Philostrati, there's such a minor character in the scheme of things. Like their main job is just shuffling around. And I remember very early on we pegged Kyle's Theseus as Tony Stark with the aviators.
I wondered about that.
Yeah.
I totally saw it.
Yeah, that's what he was going for.
I was trying to think of I was specifically not channeling like Pepper Potts or any other assistant Tony Stark. I'm just I kind of went to the most terrible version of Tony Stark, like comic level Tony Stark. Okay, what is it like to work for this person? And so Philostrati just became this shuffling, terrified little person.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And it doubled as an excuse for me to hide the moments when I absolutely was breaking, because I had a little clipboard with me and I would just hide my face under that so that people could not see the moments when I was laughing.
That was kind of genius then.
Yep, you make it work. For me,
the clipboard also had my notes written on it in paper. My lines.
Nice.
I was not off book. I was writing my thesis around the same time, so.
As well you
Busy
should.
kid.
I'll speak to that. It was really awesome to just have the lines right there.
Oh my God, what a dream.
What a dream. I was like, this is great. What? This is.
And they'll never know. They never knew.
They never know. It's so brilliant.
The biggest thing is making sure the eye line still works, because
Yeah.
depending on how
You have to keep scrolling.
Yeah, and the problem is that, okay, so if you've got a monitor with a camera on top, it works really well because they're so close together that as long as you keep your next lines right at the top of the screen, you're fine. But some people had their script to the side or something like that, and we're like, you can't look at it. I'm sorry, you gotta memorize just the next bit, and then you can look back, it's fine.
Yeah.
That's
Cold read it.
or something like that. But yeah, and we had all kinds of crazy configurations because I think that Harry was on his phone.
I did
and
not
then
know
had
that.
the screen. That's why he didn't have a background. So so most of the actors had backgrounds that were either kind of generic fairy forest, and then the Athenians had pictures from Greece that our Hippolyta, Olivia, had taken while she was in Greece, and let us use them as backgrounds. And she just threw up a bunch of photos of here are some Grecian ruins. If that's what most people had behind them.
That way
of the
we could know where
Athenians.
we were,
Yeah, and then we switched to the forest for when the lovers get there, and then switch back. But Harry was on his phone, which at the time, 3 years ago, didn't support backgrounds. And so he literally was sitting in a normal, beige room with a couple of plants behind him. He'd collected the 2 plants in the flat and put them on behind him, and that was it. And it was just, you work with what you got.
Gold star, Harry. Gold star.
Oh my gosh, it was so good.
Clearly he was trying, and bless him, he's great.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
He was so fun
well
to
cast.
act against. Yeah, he was so fun. He was my Demetrius.
Yes, I
We
can
haven't
see
gotten a chance to hear as much about you building your Helena.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Go for it.
yeah. Helena was a character that I always related to because I was an angsty 17-year-old girl with big dreams about some boy who wasn't gonna love me back. Typical high school shit. And it was interesting to go back to that place where I was so not there anymore. And it was so interesting to I know, right? I was if I had told 17-year-old me we'd get to this place, she'd be skeptical but keep going. And just being back to that place and what I really wanted to do was connect to like Helena also knowing that this is ridiculous. Like sometimes when you have a crush on someone and you're pining and you're longing, it can be like you get indulged and trapped in like the angst of it all. But other times when you get a crush and it lasts so long, you kind of get to a place where you're like, oh my god, this is dumb. Why am I still doing this?
That one I know.
Yeah. And so I wanted to explore, and like because so much of this was just brand spanking new and in a new medium that people hadn't seen before, I was like, well, what happens if she is like just fed up with it? And like if Demetrius is like, why are you following me? It's like, man, I don't know either. So beats me. Treat me nice. I don't know maybe if you treated me nicely, I wouldn't want to follow you.
No.
Do something else. I'm tired.
It kind of reminds me of the George Carlin bit where he basically says, if women are crazy, it's only because men are stupid.
Yeah. Honestly,
the vibe here.
Oh my god, yeah.
Feel the rhythm, feel the rhyme. This is the vibe. Yeah. Like it was a lot of like, I don't know why I'm doing it. Please do something so that I can see how stupid you are. I'm begging you, anything, because I'm tired. So, and it was a lot of fun to explore that and to explore this like this level of like, oh, but he's still hot though. God, no.
That is amazing and makes a lot of sense as an interpretation. While I was watching it again, there were definitely times where I was wondering,
do you even want to be doing what you're doing right now, honey?
That's the real tea, the real question. She's so much of her lines are about like, just give me leave to follow you. There's such a hyper awareness of how poorly she's being treated, and you can play it, and it is legitimate to play it as like she's just so far gone that she's willing to look past it even if she knows it's happening. But I wanted to explore like, what if it is that she really does know that this is a mistake and this is a mess, and she just wants to try, like she just is like, but he's still hot though, and I don't know how to break this curse, this whatever this is. And then just the utter confusion when like Lysander and Demetrius like her. It's the like, we did it, oh my god, we did it, I don't like him anymore, this feels like a joke, this feels like a game. It's
okay,
like,
but I'm headcanoning it now. Your Helena grew up to be your Lysistrata.
Legitimate.
I like it.
Right,
World's
right the
Elsewhere
fix.
Cinematic Universe when?
World's Elsewhere Cinematic Universe. It is canon.
No.
Right the fix.
No.
Right the fix.
I am not responsible for this. I want to make this very clear. I am not responsible for this.
We're responsible for it.
Yes,
and
no,
I'm
that is
fine with it.
excellent. That is excellent.
I cannot wait for my partner to be scrolling through AO3 and then finding some wild stuff that came from it.
I mean, they're both in the public domain, so people could go as crazy as they want.
Don't test me. I've read
yeah.
transformative Shakespeare plays before. I'll do it again.
I mean, but that's one of the things we wanted to do with this show. Like, while we were doing it, the goal wasn't just to throw something up there and, like, yay, whatever. Like, we still wanted to put the thought in. And, like, we didn't get nearly as much time as we now spend on character work and, you know, actually rehearsing scenes and stuff, but it felt like you all had, you know, 6 weeks all on the same stage together, really. Because, like, this was not the first time I had been a stage manager, as I have alluded to, and, like, there is something that comes from being all together in the same place, you know, that intensity. And I think that maybe some of that we kind of got artificially because of how high energy the production was on the back end, but the scene where the four lovers have met up and the two boys have been dashed with the flower thing already, so they both think they're in love with Helena, and Hermia is like, how low, because Laura's amazing.
Oh God,
Laura
line
Crone
from
is
Laura.
fucking amazing, and she's like, how low you, and just, it felt like the four of you had been bouncing off of each other in person, even though there was an ocean between you. And it was just, it
like
was
feel the
so
computer
good.
vibrating with the strength
Yeah.
of Laura's line.
Yes.
Oh, for sure.
It's
For
so
sure.
good. And that's why Worlds Elsewhere still does stuff live 99% of the time. I mean, not shill for Worlds Elsewhere a little early, but as much as we can, we do everything, especially the full-length plays, we do them live. And that means that we have to deal with lag, and we have to deal with some people dropping off of Zoom and shit. And I think we had one of those problems during the show, because it always happens. Yeah, that's where the cone actually originated because the intermission video hadn't rendered properly, and the cone was because VLC was having trouble reading it, but the cone, traffic cone, you know, orange, white stripes on it, whatever, is like a symbol, is very much a the show must go on despite whatever nonsense the computer does symbol. Worlds Elsewhere's got, you know, we've been doing this for 3 years. We've got our inside jokes, right?
Yeah.
Cone's been with us from the beginning. We do everything live because we really want both the performers and crew and the audience to have that feeling of what it's like to be experiencing it live. And, you know, and that means sometimes there are mistakes, and that means sometimes, you know, you gotta move the characters around really quickly because they're in the wrong places on the screen, and the TD starts to cry. Big box of tissues. We do all right. And one of the things, it was just the experience from a technical perspective, because like I've got, you know, that level of distance, because technically I was your understudy, Emily, if things really went to hell, and I'm like sitting there going like, I've got Ren Fair garb in the closet that'll do, it'll be fine. And yes, I am one of those. And it was just kind of like I got to have that kind of step back from everything to watch it come together. And honestly, it was the cast felt more cohesive to me for Midsummer than it has for some of the live shows, in-person shows that I've done in the past, where just something didn't gel in that particular production. Like, I'm not saying in general theater at all, but I'm saying, like, I have had specific experiences of, like, you know, a directed scene, you know, and then you get a bunch of people together, you know, to do it for, like, a directing class or something, and, like, it's just not fitting, and there isn't enough time to get it to fit. And this just, like, all the puzzle pieces came out of the box in one solid thing. It was beautiful. And it was just so much fun to watch you guys having fun doing the show. Because, like, you know, we didn't really bother with, like, line read, you know, checks and things like that, which is sort of thing that I did. And we had a buddy system set up for the people who were less familiar with Shakespeare and needed somebody to help them through it. Because we had some folks who had not acted since, like, high school drama club. And this was a little bit different. And so normally we would have, you know, sat anybody who wanted help, we would have sat them down. We've since done office hours for other Shakespeare shows where we basically just say, come in with a line that you don't understand and we will help you figure out what it means so that you know what the emotion should be behind it. And we didn't have time for that. So we basically said, okay, who feels comfortable tutoring Shakespeare? Who feels that they need a tutor in Shakespeare? And paired people up. And just, it was amazing. Like, after the show, when we would tell people that it was a 2-week rehearsal process from the decision to do it, so that included announcing it, and auditions were included in that 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, so we like speed ran that thing, and I never want to do that again because it was exhausting. But the thing is, I know for me personally, I'm based in Seattle, like this is a known thing, so like, and there were big protests here, and I wasn't really able to get involved because medical stuff, things like that, and like we donated to causes ourselves, but being able to channel both my frustration about the situation and then my frustration about being able to do so little about the situation, because I couldn't go out and hold a protest sign and I couldn't donate any like large amount of money, I just channeled it straight into this. And I know that a lot of people mentioned, like, you know, this is the energy, like I am taking rage and I am turning it into joy, and that's that's kind of what we wanted to do with the whole thing is like, yeah, we want to raise money, we want to have fun while we're doing it.
Yeah.
And because no one's gonna forget what was going on in the world at that moment between COVID and the protests and everything. And so like we didn't really need to remind people of that part. We wanted to remind them that you can still make art and make beautiful things even if the world around you is like kind of feels like it's falling apart. And so that was, Kyle was going to be directing the show we had started working on, and so we just kind of pivoted to the Shakespeare, but like David was the assistant director, and then I think he was understudy for Oberon. And basically like the three of us were like, we want to take everybody's energy and then turn it towards something useful, because it felt like a lot of us had like this really like impotent feeling. And you know, making theater is not being in Doctors Without Borders, but at the same time, like, we entertained some people, we encouraged people to donate money, which was awesome, and we made a show that I am absolutely proud to say was like the first real show that I had been involved in a decade. And so it was like, you know, it was such an amazing experience, you know, from my perspective, not as an actor, but kind of getting the bird's eye view of all of it.
I'll say, like, when it comes to Midsummer, with speaking to that connection that those of us who are in it found, I think that Midsummer is such a play that you can just get up and go with it. I think it speaks to like the universality of it in a way, and definitely the versatility of the text, where it's like you have all these people in different time zones and some people on different continents, yet you get us all together, and each of our interpretations fits so well with each other. And I think that really speaks to the versatility of that text for sure.
Oh gosh, absolutely. Because we did a certain amount of like bouncing people off of each other right at the beginning, and then we just dug into the text for Midsummer, and we had people who Hillary had played Puck 3 times already, and they were like, I'm gonna do something different, and Kyle was like, do whatever you want, I will let you know if I don't like it. And that was great. And some people who had been in Midsummer but playing different roles, and so that was fun because they're then looking at it from a different angle. But there's a quote that I'm gonna paraphrase because I don't remember it precisely, that every human emotion can be found in the works of Shakespeare. And I don't know whether I agree after many years of digging with that one, but certainly Midsummer can get everybody in the same place and like zooming along real easily. So and that's even with, you know,
about
playing
everything
with it.
and about nothing. Like, so much of this fundamentally does not matter, but you're running a full gamut of emotions because it matters to these ridiculous characters.
Exactly.
That is such a beautiful way of putting it, and I think it's the perfect segue for me to ask, why does this play endure? Why is it often counted as one of the favorites of Shakespeare lovers? Why is it duking it out with Much Ado About Nothing and Twelfth Night for people's favorite comedies ever?
It's just fucking funny, y'all. It's just like perpetually. There's nothing that's not funny about this play. Like, there's the most basic farcical shenanigans elements, and then there's the meta commentary on theater that you as an actor or a theater person can take away. It's a great introduction to Shakespeare because you can follow a lot of it. Even if Shakespeare is hard, there's a lot that you can track, and I think it has a lot of value as baby's first Shakespeare comedy. And it's funny. It's a funny play. Like, I mean, I don't know what else to say. Like, you know, that Shakespeare might be a good writer, you guys. Like,
I know, really.
He might have a future at this. I mean, it's just good. It's just a good play. And when you have good actors doing a good play and people who get comedy, I mean, that's magic. That's perfect.
I definitely agree that Midsummer is one of the easiest of the comedies to get into, because some of them can get, like, there's all the cross-dressing and this person pretending to be that person, and that can get a little tangled sometimes, especially if you're seeing it performed with how the casting is done. Like, there are all these plays where these two people are supposed to look alike and they look nothing like each other, and you're like, what the hell is going on? And for some people, the language can be difficult to get into, especially the more poetic stuff that the upper class people who are in love are always talking in. And Midsummer, it does still have, you know, the confusion over Lysander versus Demetrius, but the audience knows who they are at that point. It's Puck that's confused. And so you get to laugh when Puck screws up, and then you get to laugh at the fallout. It's much more straightforward forward, certainly, than some of the tragedies and the histories, which no, that was not a negative on either of those, because there are tragedies that I adore and the histories and I have an understanding. But like, one of the things, everybody knows it because themes of both love and comedy, they say that comedy ages the fastest of all the genres. And there's some of the stuff in all of Shakespeare throughout where there's stuff where you're like, I need the
OED,
and I need the Folger edition,
Arden,
and I need the Spark
No Fear
Notes.
Shakespeare open, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You need all
Yeah.
this stuff.
I need the Schmidt lexicon.
Yeah.
Exactly. But Midsummer, there's enough of it that's not like that the language takes a little bit of getting used to at the beginning, and then by the time the funny shit starts happening, you're already in it, and you're just following along. And one of the things that's great about performing on YouTube that unfortunately you only really get to see if you watch our shows live, because we have the live chat on when we do our live shows, and so we have what we call the Groundlings chat. And one of the things that's fabulous about that, especially when we do Shakespeare or something else, we do a lot of public domain stuff, so a lot of it is old and a lot of it is written in a not modern English, but something in between, and
Verse.
And people are able to ask questions without making any noise and cheer on the characters. And like Midsummer, we didn't wind up having very many people asking like what was going on, I don't understand. We had more of that during like Julius Caesar the following year, but it was still a place where people could there was community there. And so that was really cool. And so the comedy ages pretty well, and love is a universal theme. I know the romantic industrial complex there.
It's something that ace, I'll allow it.
But it's definitely something that people are familiar with, even if it's not necessarily something they experience directly themselves. And the level of the degree to which everything is heightened also just makes it funny. Just even the characters being serious saying they love each other sounds ridiculous, because the whole thing is just ridiculous. And because the play also influences so many other things, including things we are not going to talk about because of the strike, a lot of people are familiar with elements of it, even though they may not have seen it before. And so when they see it for the first time, and yes, Shakespeare is meant to be seen, I think we probably have a consensus on that one.
Oh yeah,
and
absolutely. It's so much better if first see it rather than studying it in a class that you may not really care about.
That
Absolutely.
and the fact that you've got the tone in the actors' voices and the emotion and their body movement, even in teeny tiny Zoom boxes, and all of that stuff can really help get into it if you have trouble understanding Shakespeare. And that's why, like, at least when I went to school, they pulled like the wrong Romeo and Juliet, because Romeo plus Juliet had not come out yet, I think. Or if it had, they decided not to go with that one. They went with the Fellini, which has the naked children butts, but yeah, they showed us parts of that for Romeo and Juliet, and that I know a lot of from my classmates. I'd been reading like baby's first Shakespeare books from when I was little, because my dear friend of the family, gave them to me. So I think that might have actually been my first Midsummer experience, now that I think about it. But for people that were not familiar with it, but this was their first Shakespeare, they just being able to see it on a movie on a tiny little CLR screen in high school, it's more. And I think that that's why, like, even just reading them aloud and not acting them out, full staging, full costumes, whatever, still I think is better than sitting there reading it. But I know that there are a lot of people that feel that because of the way they were taught Shakespeare wrong, they get to adulthood and they're like, Shakespeare's snooty. And it's like, no, Shakespeare was the people's popcorn media.
There's free Shakespeare on the Boston Common now as we're recording this.
And
my
that's
parents
fantastic.
are at it. They see Shakespeare every year because of it.
I love that.
I mean, and there's Shakespeare in the Park in New York, which only stopped for the worst of COVID, and
I'm director of diversity and inclusion at a Shakespeare company, Barefoot Shakespeare Company, that does free Shakespeare in Central Park. Not at the Delacorte,
awesome.
but at Summit Rock. We do it at least once a year. The big thing that we wanted to access was that Shakespeare is this very accessible, immediate thing that you can talk to your audience with. And I think that Midsummer is that enduring play that everybody goes back to, because unlike other comedies, the stakes in Midsummer stay at a relatively low level.
They're so low. No one pretends to commit suicide or anything.
No one's right, for a Shakespeare play, that bar is it's rarer than you think, it's like there's no and the consequences are very light. It's in Much Ado, hero gets tossed to the floor, and then it's everyone thinks she's dead, we swear, and it's oh no, I killed somebody. There are always these moments. In Twelfth Night, it starts with Viola thinking that her brother is dead, and even her twin, second of her life. And it's a situation where most of the comedies that come later, there's a level of confusion, and there's also a level of we start at a 10 to the point where the stakes getting lowered is almost a relief for the audience. Whereas with Midsummer, yes, with Hermia and Lysander are threatened with banishment if they go through with getting married, but they so swiftly are okay, well, we'll just run away, it's fine, bye. And the stakes stay that low the whole time. It's just shenaniganry all throughout the whole thing.
I'm trying now to look up the chronology. I'm okay, when was Midsummer happening? Because did something break in Shakespeare? He's I need a timeout. I need something that's going to be as fluffy as possible.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. So Midsummer and Romeo and Juliet are believed to be two of the earliest Shakespeare plays at all.
I remember hearing about that, and it's kind of funny how Pyramus of Thisbe, he kind of pokes fun at his own most famous work, arguably.
Yeah.
For sure. And in turn, he's poking fun of that myth. And so, because he's a classics nerd.
Yes, he is.
Follow your nerdery, folks. It'll get you to many beautiful places. So, in those early ones, it's clear that he's trying out, different modes of, how to make these stories work and how to adapt these older stories that he's basing these things on. So that, in a way, as the stories get later, I can kind of understand why it's okay, yeah, let's get a little bit more serious. Let's show that we can have both of these things, and can I do that as a writer? So there's a challenge that comes later, whereas with Midsummer and Romeo and Juliet, to an extent, it feels I need to get this done, I can get this done, I can do this, I can adapt this because it makes me laugh, I can adapt this because it makes me cry, and then it gets more complicated later. So it's less of a break so much as it feels like a blossoming as a writer.
Yeah. And the simplicity of it is one of its strengths. So
exactly.
In spite of all the
and why we could
threads.
do it in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. There's so many complicated threads, but it's easy to see. It's like the difference between a Scooby-Doo chase and Mad Max Fury Road. It's Midsummer is a Scooby-Doo chase. It's Scooby and Shaggy are running from the monster. Fred and Daphne are trying to catch Scooby behind the monster. Velma is looking for her glasses in the back, and we're all just. It's kind of a straight line. Whereas Mad Max Fury Road is just multiple chases in multiple places. Yeah. And that is 12th Night, or even As You Like It, where it's wait, we got where are you and who is this, and okay, now I get it. I'm on. If you stay on board, you can stay on board from the beginning. Gosh, yeah. If you lose them at any point, now it's I don't know what's going on.
Wait, why is there a lion in France?
Exactly. Why is there a lion in France? It's I tap. It's I can't.
I adore this comparison, and I will hold it in my heart. Thank you, Regina.
You're welcome.
Sam, you got any thoughts there?
No, I'm appreciating the atmosphere of just beautiful nerddom that brought us all together. Like Regina said, follow your nerddom.
Yes.
That is 50% of why I do this.
Yeah.
Woo, yay. But yeah, so
I have to agree. There is just something about a bunch of young people in love with the wrong person, a fairy falling in love with a dude who turned into a donkey, and possibly the worst play to ever be put on in the midst of a triple wedding. That just worked.
If, like Emily said, it's just really freaking funny. We just let it be funny.
Yeah. And I do want to tap into, because one of my favorite productions I had ever seen, because I don't want to decide which between you and this production was my favorite. It just, both productions involved people I cared about deeply at the time and just had a lovely, unique take. Basically, when I was a freshman in high school, I had actually auditioned with Helena's "Oh Fido Hell" monologue for it, but alas, did not get it. Yeah, did not get it. But basically, they had set it in the 60s, which perfect fit, right? And it was a theater in the round on the stage, so we got to interact with people. And in fact, at the end of it, basically cast members would take members of the audience to dance with them to Magic Carpet Ride. I got to dance with one
that's
of my
fantastic.
crushes at the time. It was so great.
Heck
oh
yeah.
my goodness, that is perfectly on theme.
So just, this play will always mean a whole lot to me, not just because it made me fall in love with Shakespeare, which goes on to this day, as we all know, and it kind of helped me get to you guys. And if I may get sentimental here, I had pretty much given up on any idea that I could ever be an actor, and all the gatekeeping bullshit that you mentioned that you decided you weren't going to do has meant the fucking world to me. This company has genuinely been one of the bright spots in the midst of what feels like a steadily descending fireball.
Right. Oh, man.
So thank you, really, all of you, for your part in that.
Oh,
I mean,
shucks.
I don't know what to say to that. That's like,
Oh god,
you
we're
got
gonna be
me,
a fucking mess when we do the Lysistrata
Yes,
episode.
Listen, correct.
yeah, that's
and
gonna
I
be a
promise
fun
to do
one.
better.
I have to corroborate what you said about like the getting rid of the gatekeeping nonsense, because like that's been my biggest thing with theater, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to direct things, because I was like, I'm tired of gatekeeping nonsense, and if I can have a level of power to be like, this isn't how I want to do it and you have to listen to me, then that's what I want to fucking do. So seriously, it's like having the opportunity to have a medium that is such an equalizer for theater, where it's like, it doesn't matter how tall you are, it doesn't matter what size you are, it doesn't matter what race you are, how you present, it doesn't matter that you want to change your hair or wear makeup, don't wear makeup, how much makeup you want to wear, like, can you kick your face, can you learn choreography in 2 seconds even though you have 4 weeks to learn it, like, all of that shit doesn't matter doing Worlds Elsewhere shows. And there's something very satisfying and very nurturing about that I really believe in, to be honest with you. Like,
oh, well, that's what we're aiming for.
Yeah,
That's
and
really
just the ability to be a part of it, like, as a performer, and then in the ways that I've been a part of it, like, behind the virtual table, so to speak, has been so heartwarming and so really enriching. Like, this is a really big service that your company does, that the company does.
Oh my gosh.
It really is. It's everybody deserves to see theater, and everybody deserves to see good theater that they don't have to pay through the nose for, and that they don't have to worry if they're going to be represented for. And I'm so glad that it exists.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I have to tell you, so you're not going to be able to see me, but I'm doing the flutter thing to try to get my eyes to stop leaking here. So the concept of Worlds Elsewhere predates Midsummer, because the goal was always we were going to do this first show and then we wanted to keep going, and that's why we didn't choose a name that was a COVID pun.
Thank
because
Christ.
we thought about it, and a lot of people did, and I don't blame them, but our intention from the beginning, when we first started talking about this stuff in April, was that we wanted to be able to continue, and we hoped that the quarantine process to get COVID under control would take maybe a year, and then we'd be able to do, and that's not what happened, unfortunately. If you're watching this from the past, hold on to your hats and your masks, please. We're sorry they fucked it up.
Literally just saw a news thing where apparently hospitalizations for it are going up, so please be careful.
Of course they
Be
are.
careful,
Of
mask,
course
boost.
they are.
Mask and boost,
Yeah.
renew
Oh
your
gosh,
vaccines.
yes. Seriously, make sure you keep track of when you're eligible for your next booster. Seriously, people, it's important. And
Very
putting on my
important.
public health hat for a second, but Worlds Elsewhere, from the beginning, when we were first getting started, we wanted to be about the idea that theater has come and gone throughout time and cultures and what have you, but theater is one of the people's mediums, and it's a way, has been at times, and during Shakespeare's time, was an entertainment that was meant for everyday people, normal fucking workaday people. And it isn't like that right now. I mean, Broadway puts out some amazing shit, but Jesus fucking Christ. The tickets are insane. You have to go to New York and like all of this shit, and it's so limiting. And
Support your local fringe festivals, everybody. They're way cheaper.
Support your local fringe festivals, your local
And your local theater companies, your high school musicals.
Yes.
Your kids won't know the difference.
Yes.
They're way cheaper and affordable. Theater is not just New York, it's everywhere.
Yes, it's everywhere.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you.
Yes, thank
Perfect.
you.
Exactly what I was going to say.
And even in New York City, it's not just Broadway.
Oh, yes,
it's all
absolutely.
over.
Exactly.
There is theater everywhere you look, and every U.S. city has a theater area, and a lot of U.S. towns that are smaller still have theaters. And like one of the things we wanted to do was make sure the theater was accessible to audiences. We also wanted to make it accessible to the people making the theater, and we wanted, as soon as we were able, which we were able to do starting at the beginning of 2021, is to pay people. Not a lot yet, but we're working on it.
I'm still shook that I get paid at all, so don't even.
I mean, we're going to be doing grants next year. That'll be fun.
So when you donate to the company, you're donating to the actors.
Yes.
Seriously, every dollar. This is, I mean, I was going to save this for the shill at the end part, but
You're
like,
fine.
we just, when this was taped, we had just opened our Patreon, and if this airs before the middle of September, there is a special deal that if you join the Patreon on the top 3 tiers, it's marked on the thing, you get a special little present for us as a thank you. The Patreon will have been going for a little bit by the time this airs. I don't remember what the plan is on that one, but what we wanted to make sure to do is, as soon as it was possible to do so, pay people. Make sure that we're paying people for the work that they're doing. Cast, crew, everybody. And we're not competitive yet. Like, sadly, we cannot pay enough that people can, use us to make their living, but that would be an amazing champagne problem for me to have to deal with. And we wanted to make sure that we do a lot of Shakespeare and a lot of other much older plays because public domain is our friend. But to hell with the idea that this shit's got to be done by a bunch of white people. Fuck that nonsense. We have always cast either, we're not paying attention to race, or we have specific goals that we want to. Sam's Roaring Girl, which was 2022 summer.
Last year.
Last year, we had a very specific idea of a race-based message that we wanted to get across to audiences with the assistance of people to check our work. I mean, Regina was one that checked our work on that one. Yeah. now that I think about it, you were.
So grateful for it.
Thank you.
And the show's fantastic, and it's Jacobean ridiculousness, but the ideas of screwing around with the expectations about gender and sexuality and race is something that we want to do. We're a very queer company. We're working on becoming more diverse, but we're in other metrics thereof. And we're always looking for more people to participate, so find us on socials. Those will tell you when we have open auditions and when we're looking for volunteers and stuff. But the goal with Worlds Elsewhere has always been that theater is for the people, and we want to do that by as many different angles as we can. And so that's why all but one of the shows we have done so far are available free on YouTube to watch whenever you like. The one that's missing is because of licensing stuff, and we learned our lesson on that. So we're moving forward. I'm learning a lot more of the really deep theater history stuff that I did not pick up when I was in classes. We also want to look at new playwrights who aren't represented by people like Concord, because they are also part of the problem. Because I understand they want to protect the playwrights' plays, but if you know playwrights who are trying to get their stuff off the ground, send them my way for after all this is over, because we will pay licensing fees as long as they'll let us put it on YouTube.
I will say one of the biggest boons to bring in any kind of people of any, writers, audiences, whatever.
Yeah.
When I had my theater company pretty active was new works festivals, was developing new works. 15-minute plays, 5-minute plays, whatever. Yeah. And the thing is that you can reach out to people for that, but then also you can develop in-house if we're doing like a 5-minute play festival or something, some people who want to do that.
This year was meant to be just a simple, we do 3 to 4 main stage shows, we do a couple of spooky stories in December, and it'll be fine. And then, the strike made things a little more complicated, and we're rolling with the punches because that's what you do in this industry. Definitely want to go back to workshopping things and maybe doing like play events like Emily you were talking about, and then if you are
if anyone is interested in being a director of new works for Worlds Elsewhere Theater Company, that is exactly the kind of role that would fill that. And then if you do an evening of 5-minute, 10-minute plays on Zoom, that's a bunch of new works out there with a bunch of actors and a whole new audience for a whole bunch of people. So I'm just saying, it's a good resource.
I mean, it sounds really good to me. I'd love to be able to stage it. And I will also point out that for not very much on Patreon, you get to see some stuff in advance. And if we workshop things, you will have access to like the earliest workshop versions of things, and your input will be taken into what we give to the playwrights when they are reworking their plays and other fun things like that. We don't charge tickets. We offer people the option to donate. And then we tell them what the suggested ticket price would be, and sometimes that ticket price will get you into talk back with some members of the cast and crew afterwards if you donate like $20, you know, things like that are, you know, separate and done a little differently. Well, there's more behind the scenes stuff for patrons as well, but we still want to keep the actual plays, the full productions, free and on YouTube, so you can watch them whenever you like. And we're probably not doing a charity show this year, between all of the crazy and the fact that we need funds because we run on donations, and we are working our way up to grants, and we've got a bunch of research on that. But we are, if you are someone who knows how to fill out grants for arts application purposes, hit me up. There is a contact thing on the website. Right now we are a volunteer only organization, so the people who do the work behind the scenes to make the plays happen in the broadest sense aren't getting paid. It's just the casts and crews. But we're always looking for new faces and personalities to put on the screen. We are always looking for new people to bring us new visions as directors. We are always looking for more technical people. I swear it is very different than what it's like to do this live on a physical stage, but it is not that scary, I swear. And we're always looking for volunteers to help us put this stuff together behind the scenes, and eventually, if we have the money to do so, we will pay those people. But the cast and crews always get paid at this point, and donations are what make us go round. And we are a 501c3 in the United States, which means that if you are an American taxpayer, you can take any money you donate to us, including your Patreon subscription, can be taken off on your taxes if you do them in itemized. Most people are not eligible for that. It doesn't wind up working out, but if
you never know.
You never know. I mean, you check every year, and if you're taking off charitable donations, we count, which is exciting. That's the World's Elsewhere pitch.
This is our extended shareholders call.
Oh gosh, yeah, right? Right? It kind of is a little bit.
Anyone else have anything to plug?
I do.
Yes.
I do live theater with Barefoot Shakespeare Company. We are a nonprofit Shakespeare company that does free Shakespeare in Central Park at Summit Rock since 2013. It's our 10-year anniversary.
Yay!
In a couple weeks, at the end of August and the beginning of September, we're doing a Midsummer Night's Dream, ironically, and we're doing it as part of our Unrehearsed series as our fundraising event. Basically, we give the actors the script a month in advance.
Oh, wow.
They memorize it separate from each other, and then we all get together the day of, and we just perform it. And we treat it like a sporting event.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, you take, like, the audience takes bets on who they think is going to screw up the most, who they think is going to get the most points. It's a good time. There's a swear jar. Like, we have fun here. So that's going to be happening Saturday, August 26th, and Saturday, September 2nd, both at 4 p.m. at Summit Rock in Central Park. It's going to be exciting.
There will not be a virtual stream.
There won't be a virtual stream for that one, unfortunately. It is very live.
I bet.
Yeah, it is very, very the livest you can ever be. Also, barefoot, again, we're probably going to do this in person as well, but I'll see what can be done in terms of virtual. I write plays, and I wrote a play in iambic pentameter. That's a reimagining of the end of Much Ado About Nothing, focused on Hero. It's called Much Ado About Hero.
Very cool.
I want to compare notes from my undergrad capstone that also involves Hero.
I love it! Yeah! So that's going to be going up in the fall. Fingers crossed. A little workshop-y bit of that. But head to barefootshakespeare.org. Follow us at Barefoot Shakes on Instagram and on Facebook for more information. Oh, also sign up for Marvel Move. I'm Storm in that. That sounds like a joke. Like, I know I just said it as like a joke and a casual thing, but I'm actually secretly like
totally
freaking
legit.
the fuck out every time. I say it. Right? That's what I say.
It's so perfect.
Thanks. That's my plugs.
I don't feel comfortable plugging my stuff right now because most of the content I've made in the past could be considered promotion of struck work. So I will just say donate to the Entertainment Community Fund, support your local actors, writers, and all other workers who may be in need of your support because it's kind of a hot labor summer.
Hot labor summer, baby!
Oh god.
And also stay hydrated because it's a hot summer.
That is good advice.
Oh, also remember, don't just drink water. Make sure you have electrolytes. Otherwise, you get hypernatremia.
Bad time.
Bad times. Can attest. So throw a Powerade in there sometimes.
Yeah.
Is it my turn? Okay. Yay. Find me on Stealing Focus on YouTube. Do musical theater history and reviews.
That's
Other
a
than
big
that,
something, Emily.
Yeah.
Very big something.
Oh, thank you. I don't know what's next. I'm in school and all the kinds of stuff. So you just find me there. You'll stay up to date.
Shout out to your Broadway Blacklist video. That one's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And as always, you can find me on Twitter, Tumblr, and TikTok under Faye Riviera. You can also follow this podcast on Twitter at IER Podcast. We'll be continuing our Midsummer celebration of the World's Elsewhere Theater Company's production of A Midsummer Night's Dream next week. Hope to see you there. And remember, stories gain power in each retelling.
If we shadows have offended, think but this, and all is mended, that you have but slumbered here, while these visions did appear. And this weak and idle theme, no more yielding but a dream, gentles, do not reprehend, and if you pardon, we will mend. And as I am an honest puck, if we have unearned luck, now to scape the serpent's tongue, we will make amends ere long, else the puck a liar call. So good night until you all. Give me your hands if we be friends, and Robin shall restore amends.